The 2024 presidential election is right around the corner, and with Super Tuesday mere days away, it is apparent that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are likely to be their respective party nominees, assuming neither of them die or drop out. Which president is going to be re-elected to the White House again? That's exactly what me and conservative Hawkeye politics are going to be covering in this video.
What's up, guys? I know my good friend here has not uploaded in a little while, but he's back and he's mentally prepared to make more videos of these. Thank you for having me on this video.
You're welcome. All right, so let's go ahead and fill out all the safe Trump states. These are states that are going to go for Trump by more than 15%. All these states they did in 2016 and 2020, with some few exceptions, but generally all these states are going to go by likely or safe margins for Trump. Hawkeye, what are your opinions on this?
I agree. These states have not voted blue in a long time. I mean, Indiana did vote blue in 2008, but that was like a giant fluke. And I don't think Trump should have a problem winning any of these states. And even if he goes to jail or something, I think he'll still hold on to these states easily.
Now we're going to do all the safe states that are going to Biden. These states are going to go 15% or more for Joe Biden in 2024. It's pretty much the same set of states that he got in the last election in 2020, with Colorado joining that column. Hawkeye, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I agree. Biden obviously winning the traditionally very blue, highly populated states like California, Illinois, and New York. There is talk that New York will get like competitive or something, according to a lot of polls and a lot of predictors. But honestly, I don't really buy the narrative that it'll be a likely margin. I think it'll narrow up from 2020 for sure, but I don't see it going to a likely margin. So New York voted for Biden by what was it, 23% last time,
Yep.
and I think it'll probably be like I don't know, 16 to 17 points maybe. So I think it'll still be a safe margin. As for Colorado, if we're using your margins, it was a likely state for Biden in 2020. But the thing is, I think it's going to go up to being to safe by around 15 because the thing is, the Denver area just keeps on trending blue. Combined with the fact that they have a very popular Democrat governor who won by 20 in 2022. So, yeah, I think all of these states will go to Biden easily.
Yeah, and in New York, the governor's race only went blue by, I believe, 5% in the midterms. I don't think Trump's going to be able to pull off a margin like that, but I do think New York is going to get more competitive, especially if the African American vote is much lower and they turn out much less than the last election.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
so now we're going to be moving into the likely category. These are states that are going to vote for the candidate by between 5 and 15%. So let's get into it. South Carolina, this state, it went to Donald Trump in 2020 by 11.7% and in 2016 by 14.3%. I think he's going to have a rebound in the state, especially if there's lower African American turnout or African Americans also go to him a little bit more than they did in 2020. Obviously, he's not going to get a lot of African American vote, but he's going to significantly improve on his 2020 vote.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So South Carolina, it's one of those states where it's an almost guaranteed red state, but it's not like Alabama levels of red. It's just like one of those states that are red, but not like insanely red. So yeah, I expect it to be like in between the 2020 and 2016 margins by around 13 to maybe even 12 if Trump doesn't have that good of a night. But I think it'll be like 13 or 14 at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree with you. So now
Yeah.
we're going to be moving into Alaska. This state has been voting for Republicans for a very long time. The last time it went blue is in 1964, and that was in a landslide election. It's going to go to a likely margin by Trump. In 2020, it went to him by 10%, and in 2016, it went to him by 14%. Well, they're going to have ranked choice voting in this election, so that's definitely not going to help Trump. But the state in general has also been shifting to the left.
Yeah, and I also think this is a state that like RFK is going to do well in because Alaska has known to really like third parties for whatever reason. So I actually do think the margin here it will actually decrease in 20 from 2020. As you said, he won by 10 last time around. I think he only wins by around 8 or 9 this time.
Yeah, I can see that. The ranked choice voting, I think, is going to hurt him, along with RFK. He's going to take a lot
Yeah,
of votes, especially in states like Alaska, Minnesota, and New Hampshire.
for sure. Although I think Trump still probably wins the state regardless.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so now we're going to be moving on to Virginia. This is a state. It voted for George Bush by 8.2% in 2004, and then it quickly became an Obama state. And in 2016, Clinton won it by 5%, and it shifted 5 points to the left and voted for Biden by 10% in 2020. I don't see this state going red in any scenario in 2024. The state has been shifting to the left rapidly, and I don't really see much that is going to be able to change that shift. Glenn Youngkin did win the governorship in 2021, but keep in mind he did distance himself greatly from Trump, so I don't think it's going to go red.
Yeah, I agree. Virginia is just one of those states that have been slowly shifting to the left. So I don't really see, like, honestly, I would be shocked if it was close. Like, I don't see the state getting anywhere below 5. I do think Trump could narrow it up by a few points if we have like a really good night. But at the end of the day, I think Biden's probably going to win it by around 8, probably.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. All right, so now onto our next state, New Mexico. This is the only majority Hispanic state in the country, and Hispanics have been shifting to the right in recent elections, but it's not the state is not going to go red in 2024. It's not going to get that competitive either. In 2020, it went to Biden by 11%, and in 2016, it went to Clinton by 8%. It generally is since the last time it went red was in 2004, just like Virginia, and that was just barely less than 1%. So I don't see this state changing too much. It's even though it's Hispanic and Hispanics are trending to the right, it might get a little more competitive, but I don't see it generally changing much.
Yeah, I agree. The thing is, so Trump is shown to be making big time gains with Hispanics in the polls, as we can all see. But I don't see that being enough to win New Mexico, as it still leans blue overall. Although I do think this will definitely narrow up. I think this will probably be even closer than in 2016, which Hillary won by around 8. So I'd say Biden's probably going to win it by around probably similar to the margin where Grisham won in the governor's race in 2022, a margin of around 6.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. And you also got to keep in mind the Hispanics in Florida are not the same as the Hispanics in New Mexico. The Hispanics along the
Absolutely.
Texas border are not the same as the Hispanics in Nevada. So it just depends on, the state and its trends. But New Mexico is going to go to Joe Biden by around 6 to 7%, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, the next state is Florida. In the 2022 midterms, Ron DeSantis won 19% of the vote, pretty much a landslide in Florida terms. I think it's going to go to Trump anywhere between 7 and 9% in 2024. It's been shifting to the right rapidly. It was one of the only few states to actually tend towards Trump in 2020 from 2016. It voted for him at 3.4% in 2020, and in 2016, it only went to him by 1.2%. This state is trending to the right fast, especially the Hispanic vote in Miami, and I don't see it. It's gonna go to Trump by 7 to 9%.
Yeah, that's definitely reasonable. The Florida Democrats are really not doing well. Despite Biden did flip the most populated county in the state in 2020, being the first Democrat to win it since I believe Carter in '76. It was Duval County, which is where Jacksonville is. That's actually the most populated county in the entire state. Um, and that's like the only like major gain Biden made in the state, but it still shifted to the right overall. The state did. So I don't. So even if Biden's able to hold on to Duvall, it's not going to be enough for it to be close. And then Miami-Dade in 2020 was not good for Biden at all.
Yeah,
Probably because of like the Hispanic shift. So Trump could probably even win Miami-Dade, in my opinion. So I think Trump's going to win Florida by 9 to 10.
yeah, I think that's reasonable. In 2016, Miami-Dade went to Clinton by 30%. In 2020, it only went to Biden by 7%. And this is in a very strong year for Democrats, especially considering the COVID pandemic and all that.
For sure. And Hillary actually did better than Obama in Miami-Dade, and then Biden ends up doing very terribly there. So it's quite crazy to see the shift in that county.
Yeah. All right, moving on to our next state here, the state of Iowa, Hawkeye state. I believe the state is going to go to Trump. I think anywhere 9 to 11%. I'd say up more on the upper end of that. It could get to up to 12% as well. This is ever since it's been an Obama-Trump state. Many Obama-Trump voters there. In 2012, it went to Obama by 6%, and then it went to Trump in 2016 by 9.5%. It also went to Obama in 2008 by 9.5%. It also voted for Trump in 2020 by 8%.
Yeah, we definitely showed a pretty heavy shift towards Republicans in the last few election cycles, and Trump definitely has some responsibility there with his very good like rural appeal and blue collar appeal. I don't think it's going to be safe for Trump, depending on your margin. Although I do think it might crack double digits. So right now, my current margin in Iowa is probably Trump plus 10.
Yeah, I think that's a reason. I can see that. All right, our next state here is going to be. It's not. This next district here is going to be Maine second district. It's going to go to Trump by a likely margin. It's also one of the Obama Trump states. It
Or
went.
districts. Yeah.
Yeah, it went to Obama by 9% in 2012, and then it went to Trump by 10%. So a lot of Obama and Trump voters here. It's not going to trend much. It's not going to change much. It swung 3% to the left in 2020, but besides that, there's not going to be much shift in Maine second district.
Yeah, I mean, there is a possibility the district actually narrows up because RFK, I think, will do okay with like the blue collar people living there. But Biden's not winning it. Like, I highly doubt Biden's going to flip it. Even if like Biden overperforms nationwide, I don't see Maine second flipping
Yeah, very true. Now, Maine at large, this is a likely state. A recent poll showed Trump winning the state by 6%. Obviously, that is not going to happen, but Maine is going to narrow up a little bit, especially with, like you just said, RFK. In 2016, it went to Clinton by 3%, and about 6% of the vote went to third party candidates right there. And in 2020, with a lot less third party vote share, it went to Biden by 9%.
Yeah, Maine. It's kind of a weird state because at the same time, I could see like it staying stagnant from 2020 and not being close at all, or I could also see it being like a 2016 level of close. So Maine, it's just like a really weird. It's a very weird state that could really that's kind of unpredictable. But overall, I do think Biden should be able to hold on to Maine at large by around I don't know 7.
Yeah, I believe that too. If Maine at large were to go red, many other states, Trump would have already won the election.
For
Wisconsin,
sure.
Michigan, Arizona, they already would have gone red if
Yeah, they
Maine went
all.
red.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
All right, now moving on to the next state, Ohio. It's going to vote similarly to Iowa, anywhere between 9 and 12%. It's going to probably be, in my opinion, about 10.5%, 10% win for Trump. Is another one of the Obama Trump states. It went to Trump in 2016 by 8%, and in 2020 it went to him by also 8%. Obama, it went to him by 3% in 2012, and in 2008 it went to him by 5%. It's just one of those states. A lot of working class voters, they love Trump, so I don't see much changing in the state besides it getting more conservative. There is a competitive Senate race though, so that might actually drive more Democrats out to the polls. And as you saw, if Sherrod Brown and the Democrats campaign off of abortion, that could be useful to them because in Ohio they did approve the abortion onto the ballot. And another thing, Democrats are going to be pouring more money into Ohio to get Democrats to turn out because of that competitive Senate race.
Yeah, although at the end of the day, I don't really see it doing much damage because in 2022, Democrats ran the best candidate they could possibly run, a moderate, pro working class Democrat against a guy, JD Vance, who was not really the strongest candidate at the time. He was just seen as like a flip flopper on Trump and like did not campaign much. And Vance still won by a likely margin, even despite it going down like 2 points from 2020, he still won by a likely margin. So what I'm trying to say is like I don't think like I think Democrats would definitely try to win this or not win, but make the state close. But at the end of the day, I don't see really much happening to it because Trump is really well liked in Ohio. And while I don't think it's going to be safe, I actually do have it barely shifting to the right from 2020. As you said, he won it by 8 last time, so I'd say he probably wins it by around 9.5, which 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 means I think the Senate race is a toss up. Bernie Moreno, he's like in a tough fight, and I think he could win, but I also think he could lose. And even if he does lose, Trump's still going to win Ohio by at least 8 or 9.
Yeah, it's just one of the states that have shifted out of the Democratic column recently.
Yeah,
All right, moving on to our next and our final likely state, state of Texas. It went to Trump by 5% in 2020, and it went to him by 9% in 2016. It has been shifting, especially the suburbs. It's been shifting hard left recently, but I think it's gonna stay about 5-6%. I think it could get to 7-8%, especially because of all the Hispanics on the border shifting right. And the border is a big issue in Texas. Recently, we had this dispute over the barbed wire and the Supreme Court getting involved in all that. The Texas Border Patrol. I do think Texas, at the end of the day, is going to stay likely margin though.
absolutely. And the Rio Grande, despite the state shifting like 4 points to the left from 2016, if you look at the Rio Grande, the shift, Trump made huge gains with Hispanics from the Rio Grande. Now, obviously, that wasn't enough because the state still shifted to the left. Because there's not as many people living there as like the big cities like Dallas, Houston, Austin, etc. Which I do think the suburbs will continue to shift left, like Fort Worth. I think will continue to shift to the left because obviously it's growing. Trump's not will like the suburbs and all that. However, the Biden's main problem is going to be from major cities like Dallas and Austin, where there's a lot of progressives living in those areas, and they're not going to be enthusiastic about Biden, which is why I still have the state as likely. I don't have it really shifting to the left or right from 2020, maybe a little bit to the right, but not by a lot. So I think Trump probably wins Texas by around like 5.8 or something like that.
Yeah,
So it's like it's a very mild increase from 2020.
yeah, just a slight increase from 2020. I don't see it shifting much because the suburbs, the trending in the suburbs, and the border are going to cancel out each other.
Yeah, but I highly doubt Biden's going to win Texas unless if like Trump goes to jail or something. But even then I don't even
Yeah,
see.
I don't think Texas, even if Trump went to jail, would go blue.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like even if he does go to jail, I feel like it would still be a hard battle. And plus, here's the thing: Biden knows he's in like in a really close race nationwide. Like he knows he's losing to Trump, so Biden's gonna focus on the swing states first before he focuses on Texas right now.
Yeah, definitely. All right. All right, now we're entering the lean category. These are states that vote for the candidate between 1 and 5%. The first state we have here is Minnesota. It's going to be on the upper end of that. I think it's going to be around 4.75%, 4.8%. And that's going to be because of the third party vote share. RFK is going to take a good bit of that. If we look at 2016, there was a very high third party vote share, and Clinton only won it by 1.5%. But if you look at 2020 with much lower third party vote share, it went to Biden by 7%. And this is the state that's been going, this is the longest Democratic streak state besides DC, and that's not a state though, but it's been going to Democrats since the 70s. And in 2016, it was particularly close because of third parties, but I don't see it going to Donald Trump this election year.
Yeah. So Minnesota is a very interesting state. The Twin Cities are getting a very progressive, and I expect them to continue to shift to the left. But yeah, I think it'll probably like the state will probably shift to the right, but I don't see a way Trump wins it. I don't really think Biden should have, or I don't think Biden should worry too much about losing Minnesota. Because I think he'll still do well in like Minneapolis and all that, and the suburbs Trump's going to struggle in them. And I could even see this being a likely state, but I'll keep it barely in the lean column just because Biden's not doing really well right now. Although I might move this into the likely column in the future if Biden starts to poll better. But anyway,
Yeah.
so Minnesota against Harris, maybe you could make an argument about like it being toss up if we get like a 2008 style recession, but even then I'm skeptical. So Minnesota, I don't think Trump should really try that hard to win. He should definitely try to focus on state like the other Rust Belt states like Wisconsin or Michigan or Pennsylvania.
Yeah, definitely. All right, our next state here is going to be North Carolina. It went to Trump by lean margins in the past two elections. The last time it was blue was in 2008, and that was just barely by 0.33%. In 2012, it went to Romney by 2%. In 2016, it went to Trump by 4%. And in 2020, it went to Trump by 1%. So it's another state similar to Minnesota and South Carolina. It tends to go to Republicans, but often by closer margins. But the black turnout is going to be low, and that's going to affect places like Charlotte and over here in this area. And this area up here has also been trending to the right, so that's going to help Trump out in this state. Overall, the state in the polls has also been particularly to the right. I think it's polling right now 6%, I believe. But yeah, I don't see this state. We can actually check the polls from this state real quick. Yeah, it's been going to Trump 5.7%. This state's probably going to be, I think, anywhere between 3 and 4%, similar to 2016 margins. I don't see Biden's not going to put much effort into this because he knows he has to win the Rust Belt states, Arizona, Nevada, and all that, and Georgia. So he's not going to put much effort into North Carolina. So
Yeah, Democrat, they usually overestimate their chances there. If you go to this back to the Senate race back in 2022, Democrats ran an African American woman in a state that has a decent amount of African Americans living in them, and she still lost by 3. And while Democrats did overperform a little bit in that race, Beasley did a little bit better than what people thought she would. She still lost by a lean margin. So, like, North Carolina Republicans are pretty competent, and they seem to know what they're doing. Mark Robinson, obviously, he's a very controversial guy running for the governor's race, which their governor's race is actually during this election, which I do think he probably wins barely because I think Trump might carry him. But North Carolina, I see like the entire deep South shifting to the right from 2020 for sure due to low African American turnout. So my hot take here is I actually have Trump winning North Carolina by around 4.
yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty reasonable. All right,
Yeah.
so moving on to our next lean state, it's a district. It's Nebraska's second district. The district was redistricted to be more favorable to Republicans after the 2020 census, but I don't see a shot at Joe Biden losing this. In 2016, it went to Trump by 2%, and then in 2020, it went to Joe Biden by 7%. So it's shifting to the left, and Don Bacon did win it in the midterms, but I don't think Trump is that popular in the area, and it has been shifting to the left. So
Yeah, and the thing is, Romney won it by well, like 8 in 2012, and then Trump only wins it by 2 in 2016.
yeah,
So
Romney got it by 7% in
yeah,
2020.
and then Trump only wins it by 2 the next time, and then Biden wins it by 6. So like Trump, I like my advice, or not my advice, but Trump should not try to win this district. I feel like Republicans should probably just abandon it in the future because it's just a suburban, area that just keeps growing, and yeah, Trump should definitely not focus on this one particular district and focus on the main swing states.
Definitely. All right, moving on to the next lean state is going to be New Hampshire. The only reason this is lean is because of the third-party vote share for RFK. Joe Biden actually did particularly well in the state. It had one of the biggest shifts from 2016 to 2020. It only went to Clinton by 0.4% in 2016, and it shifted all the way to 7% for Joe Biden in 2020. I think Joe Biden get just barely a little less, but with the third party vote share being high, it's not going to help out Biden a whole lot. 4% of the vote went to Johnson in 2016, so you can expect RFK to potentially get a little more than that. So yeah,
Yeah, New Hampshire is a state that I expect RFK to do very well in because like the Kennedys in general are very popular in that state. But yeah, Trump, I don't see really Trump having much of a chance here unless we have like a 2008 style recession. Or maybe if he goes up against like Kamala Harris, maybe we could discuss something. But I think that New Hampshire would stay with Biden by at least like 3 or 4.
yeah, that's pretty reasonable. All right, moving on to the next lean state, state of Georgia, my home state. This state is going to go to Trump by around 2.5%. If we check the 2016, it went to Trump by only 5%. Is in 2012, it went to Romney by 8%, and in 2020, it just barely flipped for Biden. It was the closest state, and went to Biden by 0.2%. Recently, though, in UGA at the University of Georgia, there was an illegal immigrant who had no citizenship, who recently murdered a student at UGA, and that's definitely having statewide impacts. Kemp has made statements on it, and speaking of Kemp, in the 2022 midterms, he won the election by 8%, and a really horrible Senate candidate, Herschel Walker, he managed to get the race into a runoff, and while he did lose, he was a real bad candidate, so the fact that he managed to get it to a runoff is not a good sign for Democrats in the state. And generally, since Kemp has said that he is willing to campaign for the nominee, no matter who it is, regardless of who it is, I think the state is going to go back into the Trump column by about 2.5%.
Yeah, I actually do think this is Trump's easiest state to flip from 2020. Obviously, Biden, I think, is going to struggle. As of now, I think Biden's going to really struggle with African Americans in Atlanta. And then I feel like the white suburbanites, I feel like a lot of them will like RFK. And Georgia Republicans in general just are very competent. Like they got people like they got Kemp, they got Chris Carr, they got all those people. And the Georgia just has a really good Republican Party that is serving them. And as of now, like right now, if it was coming down to like winning Georgia, I think I would much rather be Trump right now.
Yeah, definitely. If we look at the polls from Georgia, currently Trump is actually doing better in the polls in Georgia than he is in North Carolina, but Georgia's probably going to go to Trump by about 2.5%. And you're right about the black turnout is going to be a lot lower. And abortion isn't really that major of an issue for most people in the state. Um,
Yeah, they're actually more conservative on it than a state like even like Ohio, which is super cursed to think about.
yeah, so there's that doesn't really give Democrats an advantage at running here. So really, especially with some of the black turnout going to be end up going to Trump, like I expect Trump to probably get just a little bit more than he did in 2020, but it's overall it's going to drop, and that's going to be super favorable to Trump. So yeah,
Yeah, combined with the fact that Biden and Democrats literally gave up campaigning there not long ago,
yeah,
and
I believe they stopped funding for the state, right?
yeah, so like I'm not saying Biden can't pull off another right here, but I think Biden really shouldn't try to win Georgia. I think he should focus more on the Rust Belt or in the Southwest.
Yeah, and especially since Georgia doesn't have a Senate race, all these other swing states that are left have Senate races left. And while they all look like they're going to be going to Democrats, Democrats are still going to want to focus on them more just to secure because it's already looking slim for them. Ohio and Montana, even if they go blue, with West Virginia flipping, it's going to be 50-50. So whoever wins the White House wins the Senate.
For sure. I 100% agree with that.
All right, so moving on to our next lean state is going to be the state of Nevada. It's been going blue. The last time it went red was in 2004. It went to Bush by 3%, and then it went to Obama by 13% and 7%. In 2016, it got competitive at 2.5%, and then 2020, it did not change at all. I think it's a state that Trump's going to be able to pick off. In the midterms, Adam Laxalt just barely lost the Senate race, and Joe Lombardo did end up winning the governor's race. But I think it's a state that generally is shifting to the right, and I think it's going to be easier Trump pickup.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing is, all right, so Republicans had one pickup in 2022, and that was the Nevada governor's race. That was the one pickup they had. And in the Senate race, Catherine Cortez Masto was able to barely squeak by a victory by like zero point 0.7 or something like that. And she actually had an advantage for being an incumbent and being Latino in a state that has a good amount of Latinos in them. And I don't see Clark County, which is where Las Vegas is, I don't see the Clark County turnout being good for Biden, especially because Biden, like Hispanics have really turned on Biden lately. And I'm not saying they're all going to go to Trump, but I do think Trump's going to hang with them. And I think it'll be enough for Trump to win Nevada by around one. Republicans usually are overestimated in Nevada, but right now, I think Trump wins it by like 1.5.
Yeah, if we check the polls right now, Nevada is currently polling at 7.7% for Trump. He's not going to get a likely margin in the state, but I do think at the end of the day he's going to be able to end up winning it by a little more than 1%.
Yes, which is pretty good for him as he didn't even win it against Hillary.
Yeah. All right, now moving on to the state of Pennsylvania, the first tilt state. These are states that go for the candidate by less than 1%. Pennsylvania is going to tilt for Joe Biden. The state's been looking favorable for Joe Biden. If we look at the polls right now, he's currently ahead by 0.8%, and that is with 5 polls currently right now. But yeah, I think Joe Biden is going to be able to pull off a victory in the state. He won it in 2020 by 1.2%, and it only went to him to Trump by 0.7% in 2016, and it went to Obama by 5% in 2012 and 10% in 2008. Trump managed to break the blue wall and win Pennsylvania in 2016. So I don't think it's going to be able to. I don't think he's going to be able to do that again in 2024 in Pennsylvania. All right, he could, but I don't think it's likely given all the data we have right now.
Yeah, Pennsylvania. I will say I'm not as confident in Pennsylvania as much as I am as a state like Georgia or Nevada, for example. And obviously Trump could definitely win Pennsylvania. Like his path, he definitely has a path there. But the problem is if you look at the city of Philadelphia, believe it or not, the county like where the city's at, that actually shifted to the right in 2020 by like 5 points, and the state still flipped blue. And while Philadelphia, I do expect the turnout to be bad for Biden. It doesn't cover up the fact that like Democrats are able to lose a couple of points in Philly and still win the state. And that's also let's also include the fact that the Philly suburbs are probably going to shift to the left as Trump, like I said, Trump's not a good suburban candidate, and they're just growing in population in general. And I'm not saying things can't change. Like right now, things could definitely change, but as of now, I don't really see the path for Biden to necessarily lose Pennsylvania. Although things could definitely change. I do have Biden barely winning it by around like point 0.4, point 0.5 maybe.
Yeah, and in 2020, I believe, like you said, Philadelphia went red, and all the suburbs around it went blue.
Well, it didn't go red, but it shifted to
Well,
the right.
yeah, that's what I meant. It shifted to the
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And then in the midterms, John Fetterman, it was expected to be a close Senate race. John Fetterman won by, I think, believe 5%, and Doug Mastriano, the governor candidate, I can't remember if he was Republican or Democrat. Excuse me, but
He was a Democrat. He won by 15.
yeah. So
Or no, Doug Mastriano was a Republican, but he lost
yeah,
by 15. Yeah.
who the incumbent governor won by 50%. He was a Democrat. So
Well,
I
he wasn't an incumbent, but um,
the party.
he was an attorney general. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, what I'm trying to say is I like Fetterman. I think he only won just because of Mastriano dragging Oz down. But yeah, like I said, Trump could definitely still win PA, but right now I don't think it's likely. But I think we could maybe see stuff change in the future. But Pennsylvania, obviously it's a very close state. I think it's gonna be very close, and yeah.
All right, so the next tilt state here is going to be Michigan. This is what it's going to get Trump over 270. He's going to get 272 votes when if Michigan's go red, along with Georgia and Nevada. But as we saw in the primary just recently, 100,000 people voted uncommitted against Joe Biden, and Donald Trump had a very strong showing against Nikki Haley in the primary. So, along with that, all the Muslims went uncommitted, and a lot of younger people in general because of the Palestinian war. So, I don't see a lot of hope for Biden in Michigan, but yeah.
Yeah, so the funny thing is, if you don't include Minnesota, Michigan is actually the blue state in the Rust Belt. And if you had told me like a year ago from now that Michigan would be Trump's easiest Rust Belt state to flip back, I would have thought you were crazy because this state has consistently voted bluer than Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. So the fact that now Michigan looks the best for Trump out of the three, that's not good for Biden, as Michigan is worth a decent amount. And Biden does have a path to win without Michigan, but the path is very, very narrow. So if Biden wants to win re-election, he's got to campaign in Michigan for sure.
Yeah,
Because I expect the turnout in Detroit to be very bad for Biden because the progressives living there, they're not going to be enthusiastic about it.
yeah, definitely. And what you were saying earlier, I don't think if Joe Biden loses Minnesota or Michigan, excuse me, I don't think there is a path to victory for him because it's going to be hard to win Georgia or Nevada because they've been shifting. They're going to go for Republicans in 2024,
Yeah,
and
the only way Biden would be able to win without Michigan is if he's able to hold Arizona and Wisconsin, and then flipping either Nevada or Georgia, which, like you said, is very unlikely, as especially Georgia, as those two states are not looking firmly divided right now.
Yeah, definitely. All right, moving on to all right. Let's check the polls for Michigan real quick. Currently, it is polling at 3.6% for Trump. As you saw earlier, Pennsylvania was almost 1% for Biden. So this is definitely a lot different than Pennsylvania. There's a lot of different people here. With the Islamic vote abandoning Joe Biden and the younger vote abandoning Joe Biden, it's going to cause. I believe it's going to cause them to lose Michigan, even if a lot of the Nikki Haley voters don't turn out for Trump. But I think generally most of the Nikki Haley voters weren't going to vote for Trump in the first place anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, so moving on to our next tilt state is going to be Wisconsin. This one is also going to go for Trump. It's going to go by, I think, a closer margin. If we look at the polls, Wisconsin is currently polling at 1% for Trump. If we look at 2008, Obama won it by 14%. In 2012, Obama won it by 7%, and then Trump flipped it 0.8% in 2016, and then it went to Biden by 0.62%. It was the third closest state in 2020, and I believe the younger vote, the Gen Z vote in Dane, Wisconsin, Dane County and Madison is going to significantly drop off. Turnout's going to be low, and for the same reason, Palestine, the war in Palestine, because many voters don't like the way Joe Biden handled it, and some of them don't like the way Trump handled it, but a lot of them are actually still turning to Trump, and most of them, though, are still just going to not vote, or they're going to be demotivated to vote.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's also not forget that Biden's probably also going to struggle in Milwaukee, as Milwaukee is the only reason why Democrats are even relevant in the state of Wisconsin, because that's the largest city in the state, most populated area, and it's very blue. So, like, and the thing is, this county has shifted to the left even for Hillary for 2016, and the problem is if Biden cannot lose more than 1 point in Milwaukee, unless if he like makes huge gains in the rurals, which obviously that's definitely not happening. But yeah, Wisconsin, I do have it voting to the left of Michigan weirdly, but I still think Trump barely wins Wisconsin by around 0.3 probably.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. So moving on to our final state here, the state of Arizona, I do believe it is going to go for Joe Biden by a tilt margin less than 1%. It's a very competitive state. If we look at the polls right now, currently Trump is winning by almost 6%, but I don't think that's going to hold going into election day. The Green Party did make it onto the ballot, and that is going to make it slightly easier for Trump, but I don't see it's a state that's been trending hard left, and Carrie Lake, Trumpist Republican, lost to Katie Hobbs in the governor's race there.
Who didn't even campaign, by the way. She didn't even want to debate.
Yeah. So,
And Carrie Lake's also going to be running for Senate this time around, and I feel like she's going to drag down Trump as well. Obviously, Trump can. I think Trump will still gain with Hispanic voters, but at the same time, I think that Maricopa County, which is where Phoenix is, will continue to trend left, and I think that's going to give Biden a very narrow victory in the state. Or
yeah,
yeah, Biden a very narrow victory by around, I would say, around the same margin as 2020, 0.3%.
yeah. But I think there is a chance it could go red, but as the polls and everything is going right now, I don't see it going blue.
Yeah, yeah, Trump. This is definitely gonna be Trump's hardest Sunbelt state to flip back. That's swingy. But yeah, it's very weird looking map, but it makes sense.
Yeah, very. So that
Now,
is,
what I usually do for my videos, I always just like make all the states safe or whatever,
yeah,
just to
I do.
finalize it. Yeah.
So that is all we have for now. Thank you for watching the video. Let me fill in all these states real quick. Joe Biden is going to get 256 electoral votes compared to Trump's 282. That's what I'm projecting right now. I don't see Joe Biden's super unpopular right now, and the polls are not doing him well. Normally, incumbents tend to rebound a little bit before Election Day, but I do believe Trump is going to be able to pull it off unless he gets convicted or dies or something.
Yeah, and obviously we're basing this map off of the election was held like right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for watching, Georgia Conservative. Thank you for having me. It was really fun.
Yeah, it was nice discussing this with you, Hawkeye.
Yeah, yeah, it was.
All right, be sure to subscribe to both of us. His channel will be down in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great day. Peace.